And that's time. Love and abundance, everyone. Welcome to What's Your Story? And this is your host, Dr. Varun Nitambi. Love and abundance that everyone that's joining in. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you being here. Blessed to have you and blessed to be here doing this wonderful conversation today. Before we get started with the show, what I usually do is something called the water ritual. And the reason I do this, we all drink water on together. The reason I do this is a reminder for people to drink more water. There's a book that was written way back 90s that said the more water you drink, the diseases you'll have. There are about 50% disease that are common in this world, and if you drink enough water, you'll get rid of them. So cheers to that. Let's all drink some water. Everyone that's doing right now, and at any point in the future, cheers. Take as big a sip as you need, because some may not have drank water for a while. All right. So with the show, what is the show about? What's your story? We're capturing stories from the community. We want to discuss challenges, issues, limitations. We want to talk ways that we could unite and come together, support each other, build ourselves up, build our community up. We're discussing the uncommon paths, all of them through the power of storytelling. As a community, we're usually pushed in a few particular direction, and I want to have these conversations where we're talking about different career paths, different message that people share. We've had a wide variety of different conversations. Today's conversation, we're going to be adding to our repertoire. Our topic for the day is peace and diplomacy, the India way. This is a fascinating conversation. Everyone that's tuning in, please say hi in the comments below. Love and abundance. Share where you're tuning in from. If you have questions at any point throughout this session with our guest, please feel free to type in the comments, and we will make sure that it's answered. All right, I'm gonna ask everyone that's tuning, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're at 350 subscribers, need to go up to 1,000, and then we're gonna get there with your help. So please subscribe, everyone that's joining in. All right. So what is the conversation about today? The crazy times that we're in right now. We have groups of people that are being suppressed around the world. There's one group that's beating up another group, killing some other group, and that's going on everywhere in every place in this world. It causes people to live in fear of their surroundings. It's like a foundational fear. Their survival is at stake, and they're always on edge. Living in fear that something could go. And guess what? The West has a huge role in this. I'll tell you why. America, independence since that's 246 years ago. There's only been 21 years of peace. That too scattered years of peace. Out of those 21, 5 came during the Great Depression in the 1990s. So I read this online. The article said that all the U.S. presidents can be considered, instead of a peace president, they can be considered a war president because it's been war that much in our history. As one of the peace years out of the 21, the recent one was the year 2000, right before anything went down in 2001. The soonest, the closest, or the nearest peace that we have had thus far. Currently, there are 21 wars going on, 21 countries at war, and that's not including the current countries that are actually plotting for war. And in recent times, there's been a major player that has been garnering a lot of attention, and that's India. India at the center of the geopolitical sphere, and countries are noticing this. Recently there's been a lot of coercion from the West to sway India in their direction, and in America, so there's been calls for war. So we're going to talk about this whole situation. We're going to talk about what is the India way. Today's guest, I want to introduce her. It's Preity Upala. Welcome, Preity. I'm so glad that you're here today, and Hold on one second. Hi, Preity. How are you doing today?
Namaste, Dr. Varun and Dr. Gandhi, and namaste to all your wonderful audience and to everybody watching. It's an honor for me to be on your show. And I look very much forward to this amazing and important conversation we're going to be having.
Yes, thank you, Preity. Thank you. Before we get into our conversation, you've had an interesting trajectory, interesting path. One of the points of the conversation is to also highlight your path and your uncommon trajectory you've taken in life. As an Indian, South Asian, we're usually kind of pushed into paths, but what you've done as a political expert, as a media personality, as a thought leader, as Miss India International, so many different things, very uncommon, very unique. Can you share what your story is like from the very beginning? How did you get into all of this?
Oh, certainly. Thank you for asking me about my background. So I'm a former investment banker turned media entrepreneur and geopolitical strategist. Today, I do many different things. I was very lucky that early on in my life, I sort of stumbled across this concept of dharma, and I knew that in the corporate world, that wasn't quite my dharma, and I knew that I had to be brave and jump into the unknown, into the abyss, to find my true purpose in life. And that's what I did. So I sort of just gave it all up and won a scholarship to study in New York, bought a one-way ticket, and moved to the other side of the world by myself. And then the rest, as they say, truly is history. It's been quite a journey, very blessed journey, and a lot of growth, a lot of evolution, elevation on so many levels. It's a very uncommon path as for anybody, but especially I would say any young female to sort of live and travel around the world. But especially for I think somebody from our background, that's almost unheard of. So, but I have I always say the universe is my agent. I feel protected. I have an incredible family who lets me pursue my dreams and live my authentic life. So I am very blessed. And here in Los Angeles, where I live, I do many different things, and they're all equally fulfilling. And I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. I think there's so much to do, and it's all going to unfold. It's unfolding as we speak, and big projects to come. I think in the next few years, and I'm just very. I feel privileged to be uh, really coming into my own. I think finding my real voice, finding my real power, and being this authentic force in the world. And at such interesting times when we live in, it's truly an honor to speak to people like yourself and be able to discuss these topics.
You've been an authentic voice. It took me a while to find my authentic voice as well. It was a long time coming. I'd tried multiple times to have interviews like these on YouTube and for other platforms, but finally, after year 4, I've got to a place where I'm very, very comfortable and at ease in situations like these in front of the camera. What's that journey like for you in finding your authentic voice? What were those things that happened to you when you were an investment banker, and then to the end when you left everything, all of a sudden just left everything, moved somewhere else to do something completely different? What was the whole journey like for you?
I have to say, back in the day, and maybe this is because I'm in Aries, I don't know, but I always looked at every challenge as an adventure, and it was a project for me. So today I'm a little bit more measured, I would say, in my decision making, but back then I really just took the plunge, and it was very exciting. It should have been terrifying. I think it would be terrifying for anyone of any age, but for me, at that time it was just a big adventure that was ahead of me, and I had like a carte blanche to just go ahead, and I took the chance, and so it was interesting, I would say. And whatever obstacles came my way, I think saw them as opportunities. So I had a very positive mindset. It's not something I sort of self-trained in or anything like that. I think my natural personality at the time was extremely positive, optimistic. I was always looking for the silver lining. I never sort of took rejection. I, never gave up. So, when you have such a healthy mental attitude and health at such a young age, it helps you, I think, to navigate what could be very, very lonely, very depressing, very difficult for most people. And I think today, if I had to make some of those choices, they would be a lot tougher because I've also changed. I'm a little bit more pragmatic today than I was when I was, really like a teenager. So,
You,
but
you
it's been quite a journey for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned that positive mental state, having that early on. What did you have certain rituals that allow you to have that state, or was naturally there from the very beginning where you didn't have? Because for me, analyzing my life, the first 28, 30 years of my life, I had a leader inside of me. So I would step up. I would put myself in situations where I'm talking on the camera. I would cower. I would like always put myself outside of the limelight. Outside of that the lights and so. What was that like for you? What was? Did you have a ritual or was it natural for you?
Oh, well, I'm very blessed because my family is a pretty, let's say they're very spiritual, and from a very young age, they always sort of imbibed these interesting traditions, cultures, norms, practices. And I really took to them. I was very open. I enjoyed them very much. And I got into, these sort of Vedic sciences like yoga and meditation quite young, I would say. I wasn't looking for it, but it sort of came my way because I think the universe knew that I would be needing tools. So these tools came to me very, very early on. And this is even when I was in the corporate world, they sort of showed up for the first time. And then I later on, I realized how important they've been, I think, uh, as I've sort of navigated through this interesting, um, labyrinth of my own destiny, let's say. So but I think meditation helps a lot. Yoga, when I had the time to do a lot of it, it was good to just center your mind and to really open up. I think as you open up your being, but I think beyond that, pranayama, breath work, and really good meditation has always been very helpful to gain clarity, I think, and to be very present.
That's beautiful. That spirituality has been in my life for the last about 8 to 10 years or so, and pranayama, breathing, and all those meditation. About the last 7, 8 years, and so yeah, I really see a big difference in all of these different types of activities. We're talking about Eastern spirituality and all of that. That's kind of what the whole topic is going to be. Is the Eastern versus sort of the Western of things. And right now, there's a lot of craziness going on in the world. There's so much fun going on in this world. I kind of mentioned a lot of these different countries. What's the focus that we have right now in this world? India has some kind of tools that they've developed or mindset that they have, and what is that? And why is it important at this phase of life?
Great question. This is really the question of our time. So right now, I think we live in a world that is very divided, very polarized, and it has been for some time. But I think since COVID and in the last 2 years or so, and especially in 2022, the events that have occurred globally have really just exacerbated the situation. And we are seeing people, who are, I think the space to disagree has shrunk. I think the capacity for us as a human, as a people, to be tolerant of other people's viewpoints, other people's experiences, their truths, their realities, their mindsets, their priorities, their agenda, even, it has disappeared. And we can't just respectfully disagree with the other. We can't put ourselves in their shoes. We don't have the empathy, we lack compassion, and this is across the world, everywhere, young, old, every demography. And it's like a global, is this the real pandemic, I think, is, we're losing in touch with our humane qualities. And it's just a really, really polarized, toxic world. And I think this is a crucial time in history. We have great opportunity actually to rise above the muck, the dirt, and be that amazing lotus flower.
What would you say the reasons of that polarity is?
Yeah, great point. Well, there are many different things. I think for some time it's been like that. I think it's very much the my way, the highway. I'm right, you're wrong. In order for me to be right, you have to be wrong. And there's no, the lack of mutual respect. And all of those, sort of fundamental things have been breached. But I think particularly COVID also sort of segregated the world. It made the world very insular and it isolated the world too. But I think the crucial topic today in the world that everybody has an opinion on is obviously this conflict that is going on. What started off as a domestic European conflict is now engulfed the whole world. And I think it's been very, very polarizing because it's the propaganda machine is on. There is distortion of the facts, the distortion of reporting, and it's not just, I know the West loves to talk about Eastern propaganda, but trust me, nobody has a monopoly on fake news, distortion, any of that. Everybody's exercising it, and you'll be surprised who's sort of winning the war of narrative, let's say. And so this conflict has really made people very, very edgy, it's triggered a lot. I think they're sort of projecting a lot of things along with it. And I think it's very important to be dispassionate about all of the white noise and just look at the facts and just organically come to the logical, peaceful solution. And I think what we need to do is to all sit together on the same table, listen to each other, and then accommodate each other's needs. That has not happened. That is not happening. So this is what I see. I think it's like the war is just a metaphor for the internal conflict, and everything is just sort of exploded, and we're seeing it in real time. And I think we need to do something fast, because if we don't, I think the direction in which the world is headed right now is not a good one. So I don't think the creator would be too proud of what we've turned this beautiful planet into.
Why is it, the direction they're going in, why is it so dangerous?
It's dangerous because I think there's so many angles to this. One is, I think the sort of the Western hegemony on morals, morality, ethics, the way of the war, and all those different things, they are being challenged, I think, for the first time in a long time, because I think we're learning that these systems haven't worked. So what else might there be? And I think this is where the East has a lot of ancient wisdom, but I would say specifically, I think India, this is a great chance for India to sort of come to the show, come to the party with its inherent gifts, which I think it hasn't really quite showered on the world in the biggest way that it can. And I think if we just keep going with the older systems, the situation is going to get worse. And I think we need to be more humble and realize that perhaps there are other frameworks out there that might offer a different solution, one that might work. So I think as a planet, especially to see the powers to be, they need to, I think, have more humility and understand that there are, ancient civilizations out there that still exist, that have a lot to offer, and it might be wise to hear them out and see maybe what they're proposing.
What are the major differences between the Indian way? By the way, the India way, right? That's going to be our keyword. So India way. what major differences between the Western way and the Indian?
Great. So the West, I think forever, even since the Cold War and even before, it's always been my way or the highway. That's very much the American way. You know, you're either with us or without. You keep hearing this. And that is really not where the answer lies. I think what India shows is a third way out. And it's not me or you, us or them. It's really all of us. And we need to come together and have dialogue, talk about it, and through diplomacy, find a
We,
solution.
the W, the
Yes, absolutely. You know, India is beautiful because it's very syncretic. I think it's probably the most syncretic civilization in the world because it has this ability to take the best from every system and then make it its own and then make it work. We have done that almost in every different sphere of life, and we've done it for thousands of years. And there's no reason why people can't learn from that. To truly be inclusive, tolerant, open. That's really the ethos of Bharat, ethos of India, the Indian way. And I think the world can learn a lot, especially, I mean, you see what's going on around the world with different global leaders. Nobody's able to cope with this conflict. All of the Anglosphere nations are really they're powerless. And I think India has really emerged uh, almost unexpectedly as this firm, grounded, strong nation that is holding its own and hasn't wavered, I think, from its original position and won't sell out and won't change that position and will continue to sort of try to almost educate the world on why its position is perhaps the wiser one. So we're seeing this as the Indian Prime Minister travels around the world. We can see this even in the body language of the other leaders that greet him, that walk with him, that speak to him. They are really eager to listen to him, to learn from him, and they want to know what India is thinking. They want to know what India has in mind. What is India going to do? So for the first time, I think suddenly what India says and does is like the most important thing in the world is making all the headlines. It's been interesting, I think, to see a little bit of hypocrisy considering this conflict has nothing to do with India or Asia for that matter, but some of the reporting has been, they've been more upset with India's stance on this conflict than the conflict itself. So it's been interesting, I think, to observe. But there's a lot to learn in that observation, I think, of how the world and the media especially has worked, and that needs to change.
Why is that? Why has that been such a strong stance against what India thinking as opposed to, and like, most of Europe is getting a lot of oil from Russia, but condemning India for increasing the oil supply, even though what we're getting from is much less than what Europe is getting on a daily basis. So why is that bias going on right now?
Great. Yeah, they've always had this bias. I feel like it's just coming into the limelight now. It's like under a microscope now. They've always sort of thought like this, and there were always articles written in. The difference now is that they've become the headlines, which is interesting, I think. I think it's like this because they have been able to get away with it. I always say it takes two to tango, especially ironically, in diplomacy as well. And I think part of the problem was in the past, I don't think India as a diplomatic nation uh, pushed back. I don't think they sort of stood firm and negated some of this. And they didn't really speak out. And I think now, for the first time in a long time, we're seeing a government, a leader, external, the minister for external affairs, people like that, and some really great diplomats, I have to say, really be very firm and be vocal about it and hold their own and hold their ground. And this is the strongest India I think we've seen diplomatically in a very, very long time. And I think the world is a little confused. They don't know how to deal with this new India. It's beyond rising India. This is a very strong, resilient, and let's say an emergent India. And they don't know what to do with it because I think they haven't seen India step up. And to be honest, India can do a lot more, but there's the first steps have been taken, and that's very important.
I think they've done a great job of expressing themselves. I mean, they've had a voice, but we haven't done a job of expressing our voice, expressing our the India way of doing things, right? Can you give some examples of like since independence, how has India's diplomacy and the way we're approaching relationships with different countries, how is can you give some examples of how that has worked out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think India, not just the 75 years post-independence, but really the sort of 5,000 plus years of its entire civilization, because we are a continuing civilization, right? We never ended. We just kept going. So, in all this time, there are so many examples in the great past, but just even through since independence, I think the fact that today India has this great, strong relationship with its former colonial powers, Great Britain, England, I think that's great. That I think for India to overlook everything and understand that it needs to do business with the UK, with England, and keep ties. And actually, they're pushing to get closer because they do see the West as a great ally. So I think the way that India has dealt with the UK or Great Britain in particular has been quite interesting. I think after the 1971 war of Bangladesh, that was that was a big conflict, a big war that India decisively won, and we had all these 100,000 war prisoners that we could have, I guess any other army would have ended, made sure that those prisoners were no more, they were exhausted, but they didn't do that. I think India very, I think gracefully or graciously gave them back to Pakistan, and then it even intervened in that situation in the first place to and liberated Bangladesh. I think that was, I mean, that wasn't just diplomacy. I think they had to use some military action, but they came in as they came to help, and they actually managed to fix it. I think people don't realize that as we speak, the two greatest nuclear powers are actually in conflict, pointing at each other, and yet this has been going on in a more looser way for decades, and seriously for about 2 years. But the casualties have been less than 100. So there is incredible restraint, I think, on the side of India, because it's because of India that I think the subcontinent is still exists, because India's been victim of various attacks, but it has never taken, I think maybe some other country would have taken a much stronger reaction, and India didn't do that. I think it realized that when it does that, it'll escalate the situation, and then it suddenly goes nuclear very, very soon. So it's never come to that. I think for India, they take the blow, they take the hit. It's small hits. I think they may lose a few battles, but the ultimate conflict is won, I think, when you are pragmatic about these things. And I just think the way the COVID, how they've dealt with it, I think giving the vaccines, that vaccine diplomacy has worked. I think now it's like so many countries have such great respect and gratitude for India, and I think that was something that any country could have done, but India had the capacity to do it, and they stepped in when they needed to, and they did that. And now with this Russia Ukraine conflict, I think the way it's handled it itself has been quite commendable.
Yeah, they have really used diplomacy there, and pushing for diplomacy throughout the conflict, right? And has Europe been? I mean, I guess NATO forces been sounding war now, or what is that situation now?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we live in a world now where I see the West. pushing for war, and I see a country like India pushing for peace, which is really interesting. I think this people think that if this war needs to end, Russia is going to be the one that's going to end the war, but that's actually not true factually and how it works technically. As long as you have two parties that are interested in engaging in warfare, this war will prolong, which is what has happened. So I think the West has equal stake, and if they wanted to end this, they could do it today. Both of them could do it today. They need to be bought on the same table, and many other things need to happen, of course. But there's still chances for that, and I do hope that they find a way. But I think the the way of peace and diplomacy is really the only way out. And I really commend India for how it's handled itself. I think it was very brave to take the stand that it did, and despite what criticism any other country has, I think it didn't bow down to them, and it kept reinforcing its position, which is calling out names and calling a country out isn't going to solve anything, because the whole world is doing that, and that's done nothing. You have to actually bring the parties together, and you need to have talks and dialogue. Calling names, calling each other names is what the whole world seems to want to do, and that's not the answer. So I think there's a lot to learn there.
In the Russia-Ukraine conflict, have there been they've tried to have dialogue, but haven't really come to the table? Or what's the situation in terms of how much dialogue has happened between two parties?
I think the question is the intent. Like in the very beginning, I think of the very early days of this conflict, and I mean this might just have been headlines and just rhetoric, but I think Russia offered talks, in the very very early days. Obviously, no one was interested in those talks, so then they kept going. I think the sincerity of really sitting down and having that conversation and understanding that every nation is sovereign, they have their security needs that needs to be respected. I think that's the crux of this whole conflict, is understanding security needs and sort of uh, not going uh, beyond or against what had been agreed upon until now. And because there was a breach there, I think, and that's why this sparked off. And people who don't know the history of this conflict, I think it's very easy to say, well, one country invaded the other, but I think people who've been following this area for decades, they know the history of this. It goes back quite a while, even 2014. If you look at the recent, that's really when all of this started. So
Is the history?
long time. There is a history, and you have to honor that history, or else you're not dealing in truth and facts. You're just talking about emotions. I think emotions are very high right now. People are sort of personalizing everything and just projecting. And I think what India has done, it has not been emotional about this at all. It's just been very, very logical. And even when pushed, I think when probed, it has said, well, we can give you a lot of examples in the past when other countries have done exactly the same thing, and there was no such harsh pushback. And what about other countries where all of this has happened? Why is this conflict more important than other? Aren't all lives the same? Aren't they all equal? So there's like deeper moral questions, I think, that need to be addressed if you truly want to have an honest conversation about this conflict.
Can you share a quick history of the Russia conflict, and go as far back as you can, but kind of like a summary of it?
Well, just briefly, I think Russia has always had specific security needs because it's so close to Europe. So you, a, a country like Ukraine joining NATO will breach those security, I think, big breach really the security of a country like Russia. So there has been sort of an agreement that that wouldn't happen. So when there were the steps, that were taken, that were suggesting that now we're going to move to NATO, which was, that everybody had agreed that that would not happen. Now that it's happening, suddenly there is panic in the room, and a sort of a short way to end it is invading. I think the Soviet Union has had a history of, like, the way they deal with war is they go for it. And actually, they have only gone for it in bits and pieces. So which tells us, I think they're also thinking about it in different ways. Obviously, they don't, war is not helpful to anyone. I mean, Russia knows that it will lose a lot in this process. In their mind, it's still worth it. Time will tell if it was. Sadly, I think with Ukraine, some experts will say that they've been used as a proxy between, really, a war between the US and Russia, and they allowed themselves to be a proxy, which is, that's on them, and unfortunately they paid the price. So that's, I think geopolitical experts will, if they were dispassionate about the situation, that's how they would explain it. So yeah, it's interesting. I think the genuine think tanks, when they discuss this, they don't go into emotions and rhetoric. It's very much facts. And this is the history. This is what happened, and this is where we are now. And these are some of the options for us. But I think this is really where India comes in, because they understand this very well, and they feel like they have a way to, not just for this conflict, but just in general for the world, a way forward, like a framework, I think, which I think it's time that they step up. Because what I see when India visits all of these countries, when the prime minister visits, there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of enthusiasm. But what I also see is these countries, including Europe and even the US, I think they want India to do more. They want India to do more than it's ever done before, and they're welcome. They want, I think, more action, and not just great speeches and talks. And I think they want India to step up more, and it can, and it should, and I hope that it will.
What do you see as India's role in the world?
Oh, that's that's an age-old question. I mean, we always say things like India wants to be the Vishwaguru of the world. Vishwaguru basically just means the global guru, a guru for the world. It can be. I think it has. If any country is going to do it, it will have to be India, because I think you need an ancient civilization that is benevolent to do that. And I think India is the oldest nation that can. But does it have the will? Does it really have the capability? And talk is great, but does it also, is it operating in that way too? Because I think India should also see, is it using these amazing principles in its own governance? Some of it, they have done that, but there have been many times where I think things could have been done better. And so there will be some interesting criticisms, I think, because I think you need to practice really to, kind of show the world the way. But I think India's role is of this, the peaceful way, the diplomatic way, the third way out, where it's not you or me, it's really us and we, and understanding that we are all, I mean, from a spiritual perspective, we're all one anyway. So hurting you only hurts me. Those are very fundamental Vedic principles. I think all of this comes back to our culture, really, and the Indian philosophies, and the Indian spirituality. Those tenets, I think, are actually what is emerging right now in India and slowly in the world.
Yeah, actually, I'm really glad that it's coming out more often. Nonviolence is a big tenet, and if you look at our history, we've never waged war on another country. That's cut directly from all of these from our spirituality. So how did this diplomacy come out? The India's way of diplomacy. How did that come out? What are some of the books, some of the spiritual literature text that have been written in the past that we can refer to?
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. I think these qualities somehow are in the DNA of the country, and they come from, again, thousands of years worth of civilizational history, civilizational tradition. And I think when we look at our ancient texts, the wisdom, they spoke about all of these, great moral philosophies and so on, but specifically on governance and diplomacy. Firstly, of course, we have Mahabharata and stories like the Ramayana, which within their stories, you learn a lot about life, and it's like the whole world is a battlefield, because the whole book is set on a battlefield, and today the world is a battlefield for sure. So I think just understanding the wisdom in those texts teaches you when you're in the battlefield, when you're at war, and really you're at war with yourself, with your own ego, with the demons within you. Um, how does one cope? What do you do? How do you move forward? And also, you have to do the dharma. You can't say I don't want to fight, because you're in the war. You have to fight. You have to take the right action, and so one is the Mahabharata and Ramayana and some of the other texts. But the other famous text, of course, is the Arthashastra, which is the world's most ancient book of knowledge on statecraft. It's the first, I believe, so even beyond, people will talk about Roman and Greek civilizations, talking about different forms of governance, democracy, and things like that. That's fine. But even thousands of years before that, Arthashastra was really the definitive book on statecraft, and everything, taxes to government from the local level to the king, all of that. So if you really break all of that down, you will see diplomacy is really infused in that, and how to run a country, how to run a world, really. And I think Kautilya, the author of the Arthashastra, or the one who sort of preached it, always used to say that it ultimately is the political, military, and the social interests that a country needs to look after. So you have to look after your self-interest, and in a healthy way, and only then can you really be a force for good in the world. So that's, foreign policy today is nothing but countries looking out for their self-interest. But I think what has happened is a lot of countries are just very selfish, and they're only caring about their own self-interest. They don't care about the effect that they have in the world at large. And I think India can come in with the true sort of how the true philosophies of the statecraft, when everybody is happy to the level that they can be. Of course, it's never going to be a perfect world.
Right. Yeah, looking up Arthur, and it was written by Prime Minister Kautilya, who was alive between 350 and 275 BCE. So it's before Christ, 300 years before that. So it's been around for a long, long time. And it's been utilized in many different philosophies that exist today. What? Arthashastra is interesting. Is a very interesting book that I think I would recommend people reading. I also take a look at. Not had a chance. We have this strong culture, strong history, strong spirituality. The Eastern way of thinking, if you call it. But now, in the last 30 years or so, most of us have been running toward the Western way of thinking. We want to modernize everything. We want to, this is the old way of doing things. I don't believe in this anymore. I want to look cool, and I want to, the new way of doing things. How can we strike a balance between, because we have this history, this rich, thought process. Everything is already written down for us, but yet we're still seeking something else, something that's new, that's just emerging in the last years. How can we balance that?
I think the great dichotomy of India is it actually has all the wisdom and the tools, but I don't think it's really used it as much as it could. And ironically, the West and the rest of the world is now looking for those tools. And when they get a hold of those tools, they actually put it in practice, you know. So it's interesting. I think the best thing that India can do is to balance uh, your the need to modernize and industrialize in every way and so on, and to really be have the best systems, but also to keep what is working, what is real, what is useful from your own systems, because it has a rich, um, traditional history, and these are techniques that work and have worked and are just golden. I think the sort of the quality of knowledge that specifically comes from India is really mind blowing in many ways. That's why the rest of the world is so attracted to it, and we, I think, don't even give it the respect that it deserves sometimes, and sometimes it even takes a Westerner to show us, like, hey guys, you have this amazing system. You need to respect it more, and you need to use it, and you need to also tell the world about it. So it's very interesting. There's a lot of things going on there. I think with India, it's very important. They should modernize, for example, their military equipment. I think that definitely needs an update. There's so many different things in India that need better infrastructure, and we can modernize in so many ways. But I think your spirit, your soul, things that you're really the core of who you are. You can't erode that, and you can't replace that with some Western norm that doesn't suit you. I think, again, because India is so syncretic, take what works and make sure it fits into your paradigm and make it work for you. I think there's no shame in accepting that there's the West has so much to offer, and we've taken such great advantage of it. But also, your own systems are incredible too, that are highly sought after. And I think you need to use your own systems more, and you need to also go out there to the world and showcase that, because I don't think that's happening really enough. It's only very recently that it started, but we have a long way to go.
Do you think shame has anything to do with it? Because I felt like we have been in a way shameful history, shameful of our things that have our wisdom even, and that's been pushing away, especially like my generation, my parents' generation, and when we were kids, we weren't really put in the direction of, hey, read these scripture, read these the wisdom that already existed. It was all focus on Western history books and math books and science books and all of that. Do you think like shaming has something to do with it?
It does. I think 1,000 years of being invaded, colonized, occupied in every way, it beats you down. We are a beat up society. And it's only really in the last 75 years we had an opportunity to come out of that, which we have. But really, our own education system has a lot to be blamed as well, because they could have really corrected everything, but they didn't do that. And to this day, the education system in India, I don't think, does a very good job of balancing the modern and the ancient, let's say. Even from a just a study of history, I think how little kids are taught about their own civilizational history, and how much they are taught about the invaders that came and their ways, and all of glorifying all of that. The gory past is a really dangerous game, I think. So that needs to be fixed. So shame has something to do with it, for sure. But I think, it's no time like the present, and we can be regretful that we didn't get all of this sorted out up until today, but it doesn't matter. I think the important thing is that are you looking into it today? Are you making that change today? Because I think change happens really in a moment. And if you make that change internally, suddenly it's a new nation you're talking about.
What are some things people can do in a moment to start moving in the direction of change?
I think reading about your history is important, and you need to go to the right places because it's a lot of people who put out all sorts, all versions of history. Find obviously, do your research, find the one that speaks to you, find the one that you think is the true that is truthful. But read about it and really marvel, I think, at the incredible richness of history and wisdom that you come from. And also just look at the West. I mean, they're aping India now in a way that we used to ape the West. So everybody's coming here now for everything. So make sure you don't sort of lose that. Don't throw the baby away with the bathwater in this quest to be more like the West, to modernize and stuff. You can modernize in your attire and how you speak and all of that, but your soul, your essence, I think you shouldn't lose that because I mean, you should lose it if it's negative, but if it's a beautiful thing, you shouldn't lose that at all.
I felt at some point it was like Indians moving towards the West and becoming more westernized, and there were more Indians moving west. And then all of a sudden, maybe the last 10 years, there's white people moving to India, and so now this is going up, and so they see a lot more white people having Indian names than Indian people having names. So it's like a interesting switch that's happening right now.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that I really appreciate all of the points and everything that you've shared. Ways to balance modernization with Eastern way of thinking. How can we? What is India's in this change world that's very complex, and there's a lot of hate being thrown around in every direction. So what is that India's way and the peace brings about? I feel like we've covered a lot of different topics. I think the last thing that I want to bring up is now this is again coming back to you personally. Gone through the journey of leaving your job and starting live dreams now. What can you share, like one lesson that you've learned along the way that you want to share with our audience?
Oh, that's interesting. I was thinking about this. I was meditating on it. Actually have two. One is success. What is, I think as you get older, as you get wiser, as you evolve more, the concept of success it becomes crucial. What is true success? What is a true measure of success? I think that is changing a lot, and that's a good thing. Success is not about how rich you are, how famous you are, what have you built, what have you amassed for yourself in this lifetime. Success is, have you fulfilled your potential? Have you done what you could have done in this world, what you came here to do in this world? Because if you haven't done that, then you haven't really been successful. You've just achieved a bunch of things, but your true goal, your true dharma, so to speak, you have not fulfilled. And
I love that.
you will never truly be happy until you reach that. So that's one thing. And then I think just from our conversation, I would say that somehow, even in my own personal journey, I think suddenly identity is, it never used to be, but it is the most important thing. And I think for everybody, identity is important. Like, who are you? Where did you come from? Where are you going? As a, whether it's as a race, as a people, as a civilization. I know for me, those questions have been very important. And suddenly my identity, my roots have become very crucial for me in understanding myself, where I came from, so that I know where I'm going. So I think going deeper into my own identity, my roots, has been very helpful in shaping how I think, how I am, how I behave, how I operate in the world, how I show up. And I see this happen to a lot of people as well. They're really, their identity has become their trigger. Now, identity politics is very toxic. So one has to be careful. You can't go into that zone. But I think you do need to understand on a very deep spiritual level who you are from a soul level almost.
I really appreciate both of those points. I have this one definition, or Earl Nightingale given this definition of success, and he said that success is the progressive realization of the ideal. So whatever that word the ideal is, whatever you choose that you want to go in this direction, it's walking in that direction, progressively making it a point. And that's, I really I love that definition of success. Preity, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate all of everything that you have shared. It's been a fascinating conversation. When we have shared a lot about India can contribute to the world. Thank you so much.
But hey, you're forgetting one thing. You're forgetting your game.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I remember that. I said, why not? I was looking forward to that.
All right, glad you reminded me. Okay. So the game is essentially I have a list of 100 questions. So if you can pick a number from 1 to 100, whatever that is, the question that comes up, I'll ask you that.
Let's do 38.
38. Ooh, this is a good question. What's your proudest moment in life?
Oh my God, I've had so many. Honestly, I mean, I have two. One is when I'm either in a temple or when I'm in conversation with God, when I know that I have been the person that I can be, or I'm attempting to be that person, I'm proud of myself, or I feel like I've achieved something in that area. Uh, in front of creation, in front of that sort of divine energies, I feel proud. And then on the other hand, I think when I see my parents be very proud of my achievements, that makes me proud, because I think I care a lot about what they think, in terms of, because I've taken this unusual path, and yet in that everything I've done, if they are happy and impressed with that, I think that it means a lot to me.
I feel like most of us are in that boat of, with parents, and we want to make them proud. I'm so glad you answered those questions. Thank you so Preity.
Thank you so much. What a great, amazing conversation, guys. And thank you to your wonderful audience. And please, guys, keep in touch with me. And if I may, I'm everywhere. I'm on YouTube, The Preity Experience, on Twitter, it's The Preity Effect, on Instagram, it's The Preity Effect, Facebook, it's Preity Upala. You can find my articles. Just Google Preity Upala, article writer, journalist, you'll see my work. On YouTube, I have a lot of other videos that are not on my channel, but other interviews and so on. And you can look me up on IMDb too to see my entertainment-related credits and things like that. But please find me, get in touch with me, tell me that you came from the Varun Gandhi show. So I will be so excited to speak with you. If you have any questions, I love to collaborate, have a dialogue, and all of that good stuff. So please join in and join this amazing journey.
Thank you, Preity. I appreciate it. Loving abundance, everyone. Thank you, our audience, for joining in. This has been a great conversation, and we'll be back again next Thursday. So love and abundance, and I'll see you then. Thank you.
Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste.